Hey guys, it's 4th of July. Again, this is my second post for the day. I did my workout earlier. Um, Today I'm going to read from my blog again, and we'll see if anybody shows up, if anyone's has any questions or want to talk about what's been posted. I'm open to talk about the reading from my blog. I'm open to talk about creativity, about meditation, about nature, about science, about self-inquiry, inspiration, whatever um, whatever comes up. It's a open dialogue. Um, but mainly, I'm here to again read from my blog. Um, Another avenue of creativity, another avenue of expressing myself, and just letting things unfold as they do, however they do. Um, so here it is. Today, as always, whenever I write my blog, it's generally right after meditation. Um, Everything is quiet, and I allow the sounds, I allow the words, I allow the inspiration to come to me however it does, and whatever words show up. Um, and I try not to um, discriminate content. Whatever is meant to be written is what I write. Um, if it's just an extended time in silence, that's fine too. That's the funny thing with inspiration. We can't demand it. It's not here out of beck and call. Inspiration has its own agenda and shows up when it shows up. What we can do is court inspiration, make ourselves available for when it shows up. Be ready. Be ready to strike when those words start to flow. Um, I'm always reminded by um, an interview with Somerset Maugham by a group of writing students, creative writing students, who asked him, is it better to write when you're inspired or by assignment, by appointment? And he said, it's always better to write on a schedule, by assignment. But fortunately, inspiration shows up every morning at 9 a.m. at my desk. And that's the thing about being ready. That's the thing about being available. Um, you need to be. You need to be available for inspiration when it comes. Uh, Otherwise, we're always in that state of, I want to be a writer, I want to be an artist, I want to be this, I want to be that, but we never actually get to do it because when the moment hits, we're ill prepared to fulfill our own commitment. And that commitment is, again, simply being available. So today, unsurprisingly, uh, my blog was about specifically mantra meditation. My first live session, I talked about passage meditation as taught and offered by Eknath Easwaran, which is my very first committed practice. Um, it's using a passage, a spiritual passage that has a live vibrancy to it, a spiritual power that draws you in, that changes you. It's actually an alchemical reaction. The lead of ego, the lead of our hold on present conditions of reality is changed to the gold of spirituality, the gold of who and what we truly are. And it can only do so not through effort. We can't force change. We can't grit our teeth and say, I'm going to be a better person. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. It doesn't happen because eventually we run out of energy. We're tired of gritting our teeth. We're tired of forcing issues to happen. And there's a better way of doing it. And that is through that interchange, through meditation. It's through self-inquiry. When we realize what we truly are, that we're beyond the grip of ego, then change happens on its own without effort. Now, passage meditation is very specific to that. Um, it has that, it's a dial in formula for that type of interchange. Um, you use the passage, such as um, the Prayer of St. Francis, or another biblical verse, or something from the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran, some type of living energy from a spiritual tradition, and you use that to meditate on, and that causes the interchange. You become what you meditate upon. However, mantra meditation, and that's what I wrote about this morning. Um, Change happens on its own. It's effortless. It doesn't require anything from us. It doesn't need a spiritual formula. It just simply, it's the grace of happening all by itself. We don't have to do anything. So for whatever reason, lately I've been writing a lot about nature, about my early sunrise walks, what I see and what it means to me, very much inspired by my interest in shamanism. But today it was mantra meditation. So finally, I started talking about using my blog to talk about on the live sessions. And here I've talked about everything but my blog post. So here it is before I go off in a whole nother direction. Mantra meditation. This mantra meditation isn't based on concentration or mindfulness. That's just not needed here, or at least not with each repetition of a sound that's used entirely for the quality of its vibration, sinking me ever deeply between thoughts to a natural silence found. Using any force in this manner would break the hold of the mantra's seduction, interrupting the easy work of sound and vibration, drawing me towards an ever greater effort of the mind. It would be the opposite of the grace of being, what happens completely on its own. Mantra meditation relies on vibrations, a sound that occupies the mind and allows me to fall effortlessly between whatever thoughts might flutter by, not demanding an empty slate, but simply recognizing the clear sky nature of reality, that everything's able to pass through unhindered by a lasting hold. What mantra meditation offers is a moment in the gap, a once glimpsed, I find it easy to fall within that timeless point of being, carried deeper there by the mantra's vibration, with little effort needed. This isn't about awakening, nor preparing myself to enter a higher state of consciousness. Those things too might happen entirely on their own, but what I'm doing here, mantra meditation, is relaxing in the grace of what I most truly am, the easiness of being myself, an aspect of the world at large, clear and open by my very nature. There's nothing to concentrate on, no point of contemplation. I am already mindful by virtue of the grace of what's found. Beingness. With this, it's seen clearly that there has never been any effort of my own. Everything has always happened on its own. My heart beats through some divine will of the nervous system, each organ functioning on a higher power of the body as a whole. Thoughts occur without any conscious demand and just as easily, quietly disappear. Even the particles of my existence have gathered through their own spontaneous agreement. None of this is from my effort. There's no requirement or concentration, nor any force of action involved. Mantra meditation is my point of reference, just before my every need of reference is instantly let go. Being surrendered to the emptiness of pure awareness, this capacity that vibrates to the easy sound of my mantra, and yet still retains the highest quality of deep, deep silence. The mantra most truly is the sound of simply being. And that's it. That was my blog post. It is basically based upon 25 plus years of mantra meditation. I've been meditating, as I've mentioned quite frequently, for well over 30 years. But before I started doing primordial sound meditation, there was Buddhist meditation, and there was the passage meditation, and then there was some guided meditations when I first started, visualization. But it was only when I started doing organized sitting down every day, same time as possible, at least, that things actually changed for me, that spontaneous changes started happening, that I quit certain habits that no longer served me without any effort. Again, going back to that gritting the teeth and trying to make this kind of lasting change. None of that happened. None of it was needed. It was simply about letting go of the things that didn't serve and allowing the things that were part of the As you know, once again, I'll quote Gandhi. I did the last two sessions, I believe, that I simply became the change that I wanted to see. Even that's not quite right, because I didn't have an agenda. It wasn't like um, I wanted to uh, change, that I wanted to become something that I wasn't. Things just happened. Things just flowed, and it was effortless and it was easy. It wasn't always present. It wasn't always pleasant. And that's the thing about change. Sometimes we get stuck on a present situation that no longer serves us, but it's a habit. It's the habit of being someone we're not. Um, I spent a lifetime doing that. And hey, Reverend Terminator, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Um, yeah, the glasses give me that air of intelligence that doesn't really exist when I take the glasses off. Um, so, and I'm happy to have you here. I appreciate it. Um, it's always nice to have an audience of friends, an audience of a friend. Um, it makes the talking a little more direct, I think. I'm always happy to answer any questions about anything, meditation, burpees, um, you know, again, self-inquiry, science, the little science that I know. I write quite a bit about science, but most of it is sort of a nod and a um, sort of a deep appreciation shown for the relationship that I had with my father. That was one of our connections. So the great thing about writing science is that I learned science as I'm writing. I learned science as things inspire me, and I tie it into my meditation practice. I tie it into spirituality. I bring it all together so that I don't want to say that we can see, so I'll say that I can see that it's all connected. It's just, you know, there isn't science and spirituality. There isn't history in the present moment. There isn't anything separate from anything else. There is the science of reality. There is the spirituality of reality. There's the spirituality of science and the science of spirituality. Um, so, getting back to the mantra meditation and change, you know, that's a funny thing as well, is that my understanding of science, my understanding of physics, actually suddenly, spontaneously increased as I meditated, specifically with the mantra meditation. I think it's sort of a vibrational match that you may not be able to verbalize the understanding that we have for science, but as you meditate, you recognize, and it makes sense that when quantum physics talks about the emptiness, the nothingness that is made up 99% of 99.9999% of everything, that emptiness makes sense. We realize that that emptiness is actually the vibrational background of everything. And we see that the Heart Sutra of Buddhism, particularly Zen Buddhism, that emptiness is form and form is emptiness, is no less than a quantum physics agreement that nothingness is the universe and the universe is nothingness. And we can tie that back to Genesis, that in the beginning there was nothing. And then through the word of God, through the breath of God, if we go back to the heart of Genesis, the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, that it came from the breath, that it was the breath of God appearing from absolute nothingness, the absolute nothingness of the Godhood, the expression of God, and that Thank you, the breath of God, Reverend. Um, and that formed the universe. And again, it ties directly into Zen Buddhism and the Heart Sutra. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Quantum physics, very same thing. It all came from nothingness, and yet nothingness remains. It's not that when form became, it left emptiness behind. It's that form and emptiness are the very same thing. It astonishes me that um, there was no time or space until the expansion of the universe needed time and space. That it created what it needed in the very moment, which is the exact same thing we do with our own breath. We create an atmosphere that we need, that we breathe, and then it's released. Um, we are the Big Bang by extension happening right now, every single moment. Um, those were the sort of things that made sense um, through that committed practice of meditation. And more importantly to me was being a frustrated writer. And I would write by appointment, like the students asked Somerset Maugham. And unfortunately, I wasn't always inspired. I would show up at my desk to write, but I hadn't courted inspiration. I wasn't ready, and words didn't come, and I would try to force the words, and it would come out ugly. I don't mean that the language was ugly. I mean that it was my own ego offering words. It was writing for the sake of writing and not writing for the sake of spirit. Um, and when I gave myself to meditation, now for me, I could just as easily say I gave myself to prayer, because there is little difference between the silence of meditation and the truest form of prayer, which is simply listening to who and what we are, listening to our own vibrational awareness speak as the universe. And the language of the universe, the language of God, as Herman Melville said, the only language of God is silence. Silence is the only language of God. Um, Herman Melville sitting in a burnt out field in western Massachusetts, writing Moby Dick 100 plus 500 miles away from the nearest ocean. Um, and yet, he was in the ocean, in spirit, in mind, in his heart, in his soul. He was in the ocean. And he wrote Moby Dick, the greatest epic novel of the ocean ever. Um, and he wrote that, and he wrote those words, silence is the only voice of God. Um, and that came to me quite clearly when I meditated. Um, I started writing, and I mentioned yesterday, and I had a little conversation on YouTube with Duncan Walsh. Check out his channel, one of the very best fitness channels out there. And we talked about the War of Art, the book by Stephen Pressfield. And I think it was 1999 or maybe the year 2000 that it inspired me to write every day. If I meditate every day, if I floss my teeth every day, which I do, which everyone should do, if I do all these little habits that I do every day, then how come I'm not writing every day? How come I'm not doing the one thing that I absolutely love to do above all else? How come I'm not doing it every day? And the reason why is because I was afraid. What if I sit down to write and I see that blank page, I see that empty page, and nothing comes to me? What if I can't write? What if I'm not inspired? What if words fail to come? Am I still a writer? Am I a writer without words? The answer is no, and sort of yes, because I'm not a writer. I'm not anything. I'm that nothingness of God that we talked about before. I'm the vibrational quality of this, who I am, what's possible, potentiality. I don't need to label myself a writer. I don't need to label myself a burpee practitioner. I don't need to consider myself a meditation teacher or a meditation. Bro Derek, thank you. Thanks for being here. Um, before I go farther on this subject, I really hope you're enjoying Bone Games. It's another one of those books I mentioned yesterday. And Aldo, hey, thanks. There are some books that stop you in your tracks and turn you around and say, this is it. Everything is different from this moment on. The moment you pick up this book, the first word that was in this book. Earlier today, I talked about reading Born to Run. The first paragraph, I knew one day through training, through hard work, that I was going to run 100 miles. I think it took me about 5 years, my first 3 attempts at a 100-mile race, and I got 60 plus miles before I had to stop. But finally, actually on my 50th birthday, 2 weeks after my 50th birthday, I hit 100 miles. Happy 4th, Aldo. Thank you. And thank you for your inspirational messages that you put out earlier on Independence Day and what it means to you, as well as the talk that you guys gave on Sunday about Independence Day. Very much appreciated. And there's just certain books that do that to you. They stop you where you are and demand a turnabout. We've turned things around. Bone Games was one of those books, and I believe I read it in 89, maybe 90. And I just knew that reading that book, there was a quality, a spiritual quality to the universe that was beyond my present understanding, and that I didn't really need to understand it. I could experience it, and I could experience that through, at the time, long distance hiking. I could experience that through powerlifting. I could experience that through later on Olympic lifting and then kettlebell lifting. Most importantly, I could experience it through ultra running. Just something about long distances. But even with all of that doing, honestly, none of it has to be done. That was the lesson from Bone Games, is I don't have to climb a mountain to experience that reality, because it's all reality. It's all happening now, and that I can experience that conscious connection with the universe, that conscious connection with everyone. Conscious connection is just another way of saying love. When we were talking about earlier with the Big Bang and the expansion of the universe, another way of saying love, physics, quantum physics, is just another way of saying and labeling and experiencing that unconditional love. Bone Games is one of those books that just brought me to that awareness, and brought me closer to that awareness. Books have a tendency to follow one another, that later on another book is just going to fall in your hands. It's going to lead you a little bit farther. I know Aldo has a deep connection with books, and I've heard him mention how certain books just fall into our hands when we need them the most. I've had books that I bought with the best intention of reading, and for whatever reason they end up on the bookshelf, never opened, or opened and put aside, who knows why. And then somehow it'll capture my attention. I'll catch a glimpse, or rearranging something, and it will fall, and I'll pick it up, and it's the exact book that I need right now, that grabs my attention, that inspires me, that causes that type of change. And again, as I mentioned with mantra meditation and reading from my blog, we're not the changers. We're not the motivators. We're not that spark that causes that type of change, because that would be thinking of ourselves as so. That would be the ego. That would be that false identity. Ego is not a bad thing, but it's not who we really are. It's just an identity. It's just it's a mask, which is what Freud has actually talked about in his school of psychology, is the many masks that we wear. And same with Joseph Campbell would talk about these false masks of identity. None of them are bad, but none of them are reality, or maybe they're an aspect of reality and not the true truth of reality. So with that, we let it go. If we're not to change, then what is? Well, it's the words that I found in the books. The change is inspiration itself. We're not the ones who are inspired. We're the ones who open to inspiration. Inspiration is spirit and actually comes in spirit is the actual word of inspiration, which also relates back to what I was chatting with Reverend Terminator about. Inspiration, inhalation, the breath in spirit, that we are literally breathing ourselves into existence every single moment. We're breathing inspiration every single moment. So when I realized that, there was never any problem facing an empty page. I was a writer by virtue of showing up. I'm a burpee practitioner by virtue of showing up, by doing one rep, one burpee, and everything else spontaneously follows. Everything else spontaneously happens. It's that spark of intent. The words are I am. I am a writer. Everything proceeds from I am. That's reality. I am is that presence. Nothing more can be said. If we were to, if somebody would say, describe God, we could say God is, and nothing else has to follow. Because anything that we put after that, anything that we put after God is God already by inclusion. It doesn't need our description. It doesn't need that. It's the same with I am. When Moses talked to the burning bush and he received the 10 Commandments and he said, who shall I say I talk to? And the words were, I am that I am. God, I am. I am is the presence of everything, the presence of spirit, the presence of God, the presence of who and what we truly are. I am is absolute emptiness with the potentiality, as it says in the Heart Sutra, of absolutely everything. So I am a writer. I am a burpee practitioner. It all comes from that open I am presence. It's always there, and it never leaves. It's the reality that's present when ego is gone. It's the reality that's present when ego is there, but we're sort of unaware because we're caught in that grip of ego and what's going on. So that was today's post from my blog. And if I remember, I'm going to post a link if anyone wants to visit and check in. I have 20 years of writing on my blog. As I mentioned, the book, The War of Art, which again is a play. It's by Stephen Pressfield. It's a play on the art of war. When I read that book, much like Bone Games, much like Born to Run, I knew that I would write every single day, and I haven't missed today. Hello, Malcolm McCarty. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. I've already been talking for half an hour, which is probably no surprise to you. Well, I did mention my books earlier, my own books. I've self-published 5 or 6 books. Poetry, lyrical prose is basically how I like to consider it. But honestly, I think I put my heart into my blog because, again, it's that the instantaneous self-awareness of an empty page, knowing that it can only be filled by the inspiration that flows through me. That I am the literally embodiment of the Heart Sutra, that I am emptiness giving form to words, and that words somehow already exist within and as that emptiness. So a blank page no longer scared me because I didn't have that reality of a writer. I had that reality through the grace of meditation, through the grace of prayer, through the grace of self-inquiry, and um, coming to terms with silence, that I could see that empty page as the potentiality of nothing. Milka is asking me to talk about bears. What I should do, if I remember my next live session, which will be tomorrow, I actually wrote a blog post about bears. Bears are something highly symbolic for me. Um, they show up more frequently in my dreams than anything else, always in a positive way. They always have a message for me. And blank page from Aldo, blank page to fill with your desires. Absolutely agree. That is how manifestation happens. Manifestations have to start from nothing. Our desires stem from that emptiness, from that nothingness. If we want something to marry us, am I pronouncing that correctly? Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. If we want to manifest something, we need to get ego out of the way. We need to be aligned with spirit. And by aligning with spirit, we need to recognize the emptiness of spirit. And that through emptiness, everything comes. As just as Aldo said, the blank page is the potentiality for words. The blank page is to be filled with our desires. And we can see the universe being 99.9 emptiness in and of itself. That means that emptiness holds the potentiality to be filled with every single one of the desires that we have, as long as they're aligned with spirit. If we have a selfish desire, if we pray for selfish means, our prayers are actually in the very spirit of the law of manifestation. Our prayers are actually answered with selfishness. If we pray for selfish gain, we're given selfishness. And turtles and maybe bears all the way down. The funny thing with doing the live sessions and when a comment comes up is you're in the middle of a big spiel about whatever, and then you read the line turtles all the way down, which seems to come completely through out of left field, which they do, but nothing's random, you know, literally turtles all the way down. And the story with that, I talk with Barefoot Burpees about this all the time. Turtles all the way down. I'll tell this story and then I'm going to end the session for the day. I do have my second meditation session to look forward to. William James, the famous psychologist, we can call him the father of modern psychology, was giving a lecture and he was talking about reality. He was someone who had a deep, true understanding of the essence of reality, more so, I think, than Freud, more so than Jung. He was just someone through experience knew this. And he was stumped by a lady in the audience who stood up and believed that the universe was just a turtle stacked upon a turtle stacked upon a turtle, which is actually a funny insight from someone living in America, especially during those times, because obviously the North American continent was known as Turtle Island, that the many of the people living here believed that the universe was on top of a turtle's back. And who's to say? But he thought that he could help this lady by saying, but what's beneath the turtle? What's beneath the turtle there? Obviously, there has to be that point where turtles cease. And she smiled, obviously pleased that he fell into her trap, and said, it's simply turtles all the way down. That's reality. It's reality all the way down. There's no point, or we could say it's consciousness all the way down. There's no point where consciousness ends and something else begins. There's no point where reality ends and there's a super reality. It's just reality. It's just consciousness. Right now, all the time. I'm looking at Reverend Terminator's Chuck Norris, aka Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, aka Yoda Norris. I really liked your professor comment yesterday. I actually mentioned that to Mocha McCarty this morning, and I told her how pleased I was by that. Definitely like that one. So, turtles all the way down, consciousness all the way down, God all the way down, love all the way down. Different words for the very same experience. That's the funny thing with experience. We can only experience it. We can't put a label on it. We can't say I'm experiencing this but not experiencing that. There is just experience, just turtles all the way down, or maybe bears all the way up. So I started with mantra meditation, and let me give just a brief note again that I'm always happy to teach anyone mantra meditation or breath work or the passage meditation that I talked about before, breath meditation. Always happy to help. Always happy to talk about inspiration. All of this. Burpees, true. Always happy to talk about burpees. As Mocha McCarty will most definitely agree with, I am always happy to talk about anything that excites me, anything that inspires me, anything that I do on a regular basis, I will talk about forever. So, yeah, Reverend Terminator, that's a small little sampling. I grew up in a household of books. Both my parents, my brother, my sister. Going to the library was a weekly trip for us, and there's nothing like growing up in a house that's filled with books. And those books just grow and grow and grow. I'm out of bookshelves. I'm out of space. I'm going to have to start getting rid of furniture and other stuff and just live in a house filled with books. So I might finally be running out of things to talk about. I am reading the comments, and it really makes me smile to see Malcolm McCarty and Reverend Terminator having a conversation. Reverend Terminator, Malcolm McCarty, is the artist of the universe's greatest burpee songs ever put out there. So one day, if I figure out how to do if I ever figure out how to do a podcast, which is a dream, technically it's just over my head, or if I realize how to do a live session with someone else, although I would love to do a book discussion live session with you. Just hello, how are you? So yeah, Otto, just you and I having a conversation about books. That's it. You and I could probably talk for hours about books. And of course, everyone would be welcome to join in. And maybe next session, live session. And again, I'm sort of open to doing this daily to read from my blog. People show up and I'm happy. People don't show up and I'm probably having this very same conversation, facing the camera and talking to myself. I'm just happier to have you guys here. Um, Gives me the energy to to everything to be coming together for me. So Aldo, that's I think you're on vacation now. I know you're out in Colorado. Um, let's talk online, um, or I'll give you my email address. Or actually, I'll give you my uh, number, and we can plan to do a live session. You and I talking about books, and anyone else that you thinks that you think might be interested in joining and having a book discussion. Not limited to. I know both you and I have an affinity for inspirational books, for books on spirituality, but it doesn't have to be limited to that because, as I mentioned before, it's all spirituality. Um, that uh, you know, Born to Run, a book on ultra running, changed my life in a single paragraph. Um, and it's not what you would consider a traditional book of spirituality. All right, guys. So I'm going to let you go. Um, I've talked for over 40 minutes, and I think that's a PR. So I might not be getting any burpee PRs lately. I've been stuck. I hit that 115 Navy SEALs a couple weeks ago, and um, I, I hit 248 on my 6 counts about a month ago. I haven't hit any PRs, although I am happy with the numbers that I'm getting. But I just now hit a talking PR on my live broadcast of 42 minutes coming up. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go before I make it harder to hit another PR by having to talk even longer next time. King of Queens. Boy, I haven't thought about that show in ages. And no, yeah, he definitely didn't do books. He did a lot of eating though. He got in really good shape, real life. Kevin James, for the when he did that movie where he was a teacher who entered the mixed martial art. He's a legit badass. He's a legit martial artist, and he was actually a high school and junior high school episode. So pretty interesting. Um, the things that I know and I have no reason to actually know them, that the trivia that gets stuck in the mind always amazes me. So that's I think I've used up all of the knowledge that I have on Kevin James and the King of Queens. So, all right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you for joining me. I really, really enjoyed this conversation. And although I'm looking forward to actually doing that live discussion with you on books and anyone else who would like to join. Okay, thank you. I should be on Jeopardy, except they don't do useless trivia. Usually their trivia is about something a little more substantial than. Now, if they had a Kevin James Jeopardy, nothing but questions of Kevin James, who knows? Maybe I'd be on. All right, guys, I'm going to end it here. You have a good day. Thanks.